We are fresh off of college football week 11, looking straight ahead into college football week 12. Can't believe the season only has 2 weeks left. We had a lot of excitement in last week's games, and we had a lot of success from last week's games. A good run on the picks, and the projections, of course, again, prevailed, went over 50%. If you want to find those, you can find them all on our Twitter or X, whatever you call it nowadays, @Statletics_. This week, we got a couple of big games that we want to break down with you guys, walk through each one, and even dabble in a little bit of sports betting, see what we like on the books. But before we do that, Seth, how we doing, man?
Good. I know I haven't been here the past couple of weeks, so I can see how you would confuse that. But I am very happy to be back, very excited to talk college football, especially with the busy schedules that you and I have had going on. But yeah, other than that, happy to be back and excited to talk.
Yeah, no, me too. And it's a lot. Like, in season is a ton. There's a ton of games. There's a ton of information. There's a ton of stuff that we have to keep tabs on. But what I'm really excited for is when we get into bowl season, college football playoffs, and then some. And so that was my favorite part of last year, is doing those segments with you, talking about the playoff games and the bowl games and breaking down each one individually. So looking forward to that. And you guys can look forward to that content as well. Don't want to waste any time. We got a couple of big games that we want to discuss and a few model picks to walk through after that. First big game of the week, sad face. Georgia goes to Tennessee. Tennessee is a 10.5-point underdog at home in Neyland Stadium. They just got boat raced by Missouri. It was quite ugly, a very much lifeless they just showed up. They had no life. They had no motivation. They had no determination to do anything in that game, offensively or defensively. Cody Schrader had the game of his life against Tennessee. So the morale is low for these Vols. On the flip side, Georgia, morale is high. They're really in their rhythm right now. Carson Beck is near perfect, and he's not going to really pop off the page, statistically speaking, but dude, he's not only, making these throws one by one, just drilling them, but two, he's untouched. Mm-hmm. Last game against Ole Miss, not a single time in the fourth quarter was he touched once. So this O-line is playing well. Obviously, Georgia's defense is playing really well, and this offense continues to progressively get better and better. So it's looking bleak for Tennessee. And then, disclaimer, if you haven't watched the show before, I am a Tennessee grad. I love the Vols. I'm a diehard Tennessee fan. So take what I say with a grain of salt. I do have, I feel like, more information than most people when it comes to the Vols. So you can take whatever I say and that nature, but just know I'm always riding the Vols, no matter how bad the outcome may look. So before we dive into some of the numbers and the splits, Seth, let me know what you think of this game.
So I'm the unbiased opinion here. Obviously, Harrison's going to take Tennessee no matter what. I even was riding with Tennessee several times this year, and I feel like each time I have, they've let me down. But Georgia's a weird team. This year, earlier on, they struggled with Auburn, who was it? UAB, South Carolina. Those games, I remember earlier in the season sitting there and being like, I don't think this Georgia team is the Georgia team that we thought they were going to be. And then they played Ole Miss, Kentucky, and they take care of business. So I think when it comes down to it, when they play the teams and they know they need to win, and it's a top 25 team, they just take care of business. And I don't see that changing this week with Tennessee. I've tried to ride with them. That Missouri game was very, very disappointing, especially if you're a Tennessee fan. I think Georgia takes care of business and wins by 20 plus.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the feel for how it is by a lot of people. I mean, everything I'm reading, everything I'm hearing, even kind of the vibe around the game. I'm actually traveling back into town to go to this one in particular. I've had plans to do so for a while, just with Thanksgiving coming up and everything. And, I have a feeling come game day, things will change, but right now it's bleak, and not the excitement factor is not there for the Vols. And so what we saw from Tennessee last week, Joe Milton, it's weird because he played one of his better games last week. We just couldn't capitalize. Dylan, we had 2 fumbles in the red area. We had some egregious, plays where we just didn't capitalize on the little things, 3rd and short, 4th and short. and just some miscues. Nobody was on the same page offensively. And I will say this: watching Josh Heupel in his third year here at Tennessee, one thing is very, 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 very evident. He does not trust Joe Milton in the slightest. And so his play calling has taken a hit with that. You can tell he's calling plays at a more conservative rate than he did last year. And so I know last year was an anomaly that we had some breakout stars on that offense, but it is very evident that he does not trust Joe Milton to make any sort of in play decision making. He kind of paints everything pretty clear before, and it's just a one read type of play for Joe Milton. So the lack of confidence in him is evident. So I think the Joe Milton experience, the Joe Milton project did not go as anticipated, but this offense can still generate some production. It's just the capitalization and the execution that is key. If they can do that, then they can hang in with this Georgia team. I will say, statistically speaking, they can do it. And the projections actually think they keep it close, within one touchdown. But again, it doesn't take into account to vibes or momentum or feel. So that's one thing I'm really worried about, is I think that Georgia has all of the morale, all of the momentum, and Tennessee is just the complete opposite. They have nothing to play for, no morale, no confidence. So unless they find a way to get up on their feet for this game, maybe because they're playing one of the top 4 teams in the nation, that's one thing that'll do it. But we're going to need something. And I'm not sure if it'll get there, but of course I'm taking the balls. Like I said, Tennessee being a 10.5 point home underdog, 93% of the tickets are on Georgia. 88% of the handle is on Georgia. So public is already leaning heavy into this. This opened on some books around 9.5, 10. It's already being steamed up towards Georgia a little bit. So if you want to play Georgia, I would get in on that early. Georgia's offense, again, sneaky unit in college football. In all of FBS, they have the 4th overall success rate, again, in total offense. Defense, Georgia, 16th in success rate allowed. Tennessee, 25th in success rate allowed. That number actually dropped. They were a top 15 team in success rate allowed on the defensive side of the ball before last week, and they just hemorrhaged yards. Flip it on the other side, Tennessee 33rd in FBS and offensive success rate. So again, the production's been there, the capitalization is not. This Tennessee team can do it. Statistically speaking, they can do it. It's just the morale that really gets me and makes me worried. But if you're looking at the numbers and you really want to know, I just labeled those where the mismatch is going to be, in my opinion, is the rushing game. Tennessee allows a lot of explosive plays in the rushing game. They're 78th overall in FBS and rushing explosive rushing plays allowed. Georgia, they're not like great by any means, but they are 45th in FBS and rushing explosive rushing play rate. So I think that's kind of where the mismatch is going to be for them. That wraps it up on my end. I know that was kind of a mouthful, but
no, it's all right.
Had to vent there for a second.
I understand.
Yeah. All right. Hey, well, before we get on to the next one, guys, we appreciate you watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And most importantly, drop your favorite picks. We love scanning the crowd for that information. It's all fun, whether it's a spread, a total, player prop, parlay, whatever it may be. Drop it in the comments. We love scanning the crowd. We've seen some crazy stuff from some people, so it's always fun for us. But make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your favorite picks. Again, if you want to see all the projections for all of our Power 5 games and Maction, find it at our Twitter account at Statletics_. All right. Shifting gears, Pac-12, Washington undefeated, going to Oregon State. Oregon State is actually a 2-point home favorite over Washington right now. The point total is hovering around 63.5, 64. Give or take whatever book that you are looking on. So big Pac-12 matchup, tons of implications for Washington. If Washington's one of those teams where they don't garner the respect, where if they were to lose this game, they would not be in the conversation for the playoff anymore. So this is a do or die game for them, and them being underdogs is pretty pivotal this week. And I will be curious to see how it plays out. Naturally, you have a lot of people betting on Washington just because, you have a ton of casuals who go in there like, ooh,
yeah,
higher ranked team is favored low. But I will say, according to Action Network, oh gosh, I just lost it. Okay, according to Action Network, 44% of the tickets are on Washington, 32% of the handle is on Washington. So
interesting.
On Action Network, you see some money in the public actually favoring Oregon State by a little bit. So that's something that raises my eye. I would have figured everybody would have been on Washington in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Projections do have Washington winning by 3 rather than Oregon State by 2. So flopped right there.
Mm-hmm.
But before I get into any of the numbers, Seth, let me know what you think about this line and why.
I hate that you told me that. I think I'm going to rock with the public again. I kind of like Oregon State here. I think Washington has played with fire too much this season. They played games too close if they don't need to. The Arizona State game, I watched all of that, and it still kind of sits heavy with me. They beat them 15-7. Penix has his moments where he looks amazing, but then he has his moments where that offense just doesn't look great. And I think since they've been playing with fire so much, I think it's finally going to bite them. And I think Oregon State at home is going to be the first one to take them down.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a similar take, and I want to ride with the projections. The projections do have Washington winning outright by 3. But the thing for me is looking at this matchup and how these two teams compare. Offensively speaking, they're quite similar. A lot of people would be surprised at the production that Oregon State has put up on the offensive side of the ball. Oregon State 5th overall in FBS in success rate. Washington 3rd overall in offensive success rate in all of FBS. Washington does have more explosive plays under their belt, comparatively speaking, to Oregon State. But again, rushing success rate 2nd overall for Oregon State, 7th overall for Washington. Washington has a slight better passing game at 58 in FBS and passing success rate. But you flip it over. Defensive side of the ball is really what I want to key in on, because this is where things get a little weird. Oregon State, middle of the road defense, 52nd overall in success rate allowed on the defensive side of the ball in FBS. Washington, 120th in FBS.
Yeah.
If we look in a vacuum, rushing success rate allowed, 131st in FBS. So I think Oregon State's 2nd overall rushing offense is going to come in here and run the ball all over Washington State, control the clock at home, and beat Washington outright. It's going to be a thriller. It's going to be a thriller.
I thought we were going to have a beer bet there, but I guess we're on the same page here.
Not yet. But I'll take one with the projections. But yeah, I mean, I just can't trust this Washington defense. I mean, Utah's backup quarterback has been balling out. Bryson, he's been doing a great job. I don't want to discredit him, but look what Utah was able to do against Washington at Washington. So it was a close game. The scoreboard says it was a 7-point win, but it was more of it felt like a 1-point win.
Right.
So just throwing that out there. So it's going to be a fun one. I'm actually really excited. I've loved how fun the Pac-12 has been this year.
I know. And it's last year, and it's been great, of course.
I know. What's going to happen? I don't know. Okay. Shifting gears again. Big 12, Kansas State at Kansas. Kansas is 8-point home underdogs. Kansas State coming in there looking to pile on another win. The point total in this game is 56.5. Jason Bean playing great. Lance Leopold coaching great. One of the best coaches in college football, in my opinion. This Kansas team feels really hit or miss, really spotty. Same with Kansas State. You never know what team you're going to get. This Kansas State team is, they can beat nearly anybody if they really wanted to. And And, they have a really solid offense and they have a really solid defense, top 25 in success rates on both sides of the ball. So, in that regard, before we dive into some of the numbers and the metrics, just, snap reaction to this line. Let me know what you think and why.
I think a little recency bias is kind of getting me here, but Kansas State, they beat Houston 41-0, TCU 41-3. They played Texas to the wire. I know Texas kind of let up a late lead, but then they killed, who was it? Baylor. And I don't know. Kansas also, I think, is Bean injured, or is he still good to go? Because I saw he was getting a little banged up in their last game. So when I was watching it,
yeah, I think he'll be good to go. I was hoping
I don't think
we got more. I was hoping we got some Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, but no, I think snap reaction. I think I'm going to go with Kansas State here, 8.5. I think they've been playing really good football lately, and I just don't see Kansas being able to keep up with them.
Yeah, I know that. The projections have Kansas State winning, but Kansas covering.
Okay.
But I don't know if I trust it,
Yeah.
I think, here's the thing for me. Kansas, they get the nod being at home. That's a plus there. But their defense, a similar concept to what we were talking about in the Washington Oregon State game. Both offenses are comparatively similar across the board. Kansas State 18th overall in the nation in offensive success rate. Kansas 16th in the nation in offensive success rate. Flip it over on the defensive side of the ball. Kansas State is 22nd in offensive success rate allowed. Kansas 111th in FBS. Right. So that's the disparity there. That's what we're seeing on in the projections when we take a look at this matchup on paper. And I just I'm with you, man. Like, I don't want to dive into the recency bias. If we look at some of the splits, 39% of the tickets are on Kansas State, but 88% of the money is on Kansas State.
My gosh.
For me, that's, if the tickets and the money were high, that's where I get a little concerned. But I think
sharp money,
the majority of the bettors that are placing bets on Action Network or through or whatever Action Networks is tracking is saying that, hey, more people are betting on Kansas, but there's more money, more people betting large amounts of dollars on Kansas State.
Right.
So that kind of eases my mind a little bit. That's one way that, like, you can implicitly, track sharp money if you're into that kind of thing. So, that doesn't rub me wrong in any which way. If both of those numbers were really high, then I would be like,
yeah,
we'll see. But, I'm not too freaked out about that one. I just wanted to cover that one briefly. I don't know a whole lot about these teams. My exposure has been minimal. I've watched Kansas State when they've played the big ones, like Missouri and Texas and so on. And then Kansas, obviously, with the OU game, and then some other of their Big 12 foes. But yeah, man, I got to rock with Kansas State.
Good.
It's a system play. A system play. Okay. Switching gears back to the Pac-12. Utah goes to Arizona. Arizona actually has a really, 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 really good team this year, surprisingly. Something that we've hardly ever seen. But Utah, coming off of a tough loss to Washington, I really thought they would get there. I did pick them to cover. Projections did have them covering. So, in fact, they did cover, coming off of a solid one there. Goes to Arizona. Arizona's a 1-point home favorite. The total is pretty low, 44.5. So there's really not many points to be scored or expected to be scored, excuse me. But, again, Utah, their backup quarterback, Bryson, is playing really, really good. So I don't want to discredit him. I don't want to call him the backup quarterback anymore. He's playing like a starter. He's commanding that offense pretty well. Utah, historically, they have a top 10 defense in college football, hands down, and that shows in the metrics. But before we dive any more into that, Seth, snap reaction to this line, let me know what you think.
I kind of like the under here, I think. I'm not usually an over-under guy. I feel like that always bites me when I try and take one of those. But, it's funny you said it. Arizona, I remember just, 1 or 2 years ago, they were 1-11 or 0-12. They lost to Arizona State like 70-0. It is very surprising seeing what this Arizona team has been doing this year. And honestly, I've had a lot of fun watching them. I don't know where this came from, but I'm happy for Arizona fans because I know it's nice having a good football team outside of basketball for once. But yeah, I think I'm going to rock with the under here. I could see this being kind of like that Arizona Oregon State game earlier in the year where it was like 21-7. I think there'll be a
Yeah.
couple more points, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting in this game.
Yeah. So it's interesting because looking at some of the numbers, I don't really know what picture to paint here. Both teams they really enjoy running the ball, and it shows. Arizona, they actually are one of the best teams in terms of success rate in the ground game, 4th overall in FBS in rushing success rate. But you flip it over, Utah, they're 29th in the nation in rushing success rate allowed, so they can defend the run game really well. It's an interesting matchup. Let's take a step back and look at it overall. Arizona 8th overall in offensive success rate, Utah 81st. Jumping over to the defense side of the ball, Arizona 62nd overall in defensive success rate, Utah 7th in FBS. So it's weird, not any sort of like favorability in either which way, and that typically trends towards unders. Like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
From looking at some of the betting splits, 57% of the bets are on Arizona, 73% of the handle is on Arizona. So nothing wild. A little bit of a positive discrepancy in the money in favor of Arizona. The projections actually have Utah winning by 1. Actually, like they have Utah by 0.8. So it's projecting for a pick even game in this one. And so I want to take Arizona. I'm going to put it on the board. I'm going to take this one for Utah. I just trust the coaching more in this game. As exciting and as much as it's been fun to keep up with Arizona as a team, and the success that they've had on the offensive side of the ball, I think Utah's defense prevails, and the experience, the coaching, and just I think this is going to be an X's and O's game in which Utah has the edge. So I'm going to take Utah where I can get them at pick even. If not, I'll take them at +1, or I'm going to take them at +1 where I can get them. If not, I'll take them pick even all the way up to pick even. So I'm excited for that one too.
It's kind of under the radar game.
It's in the afternoon too, so we don't have to wait till after dark to catch some of that.
Right.
Okay. All right. I had this one on the books. First ACC game that we get to talk about.
Yep.
Both teams have really, how do I say this nicely, underwhelmed in 2023. It is the ACC championship rematch of 2022. Clemson plays North Carolina. This one is at Clemson. Clemson is 6.5 point home favorites. Point total sitting at around 58.5, 59, depending on which book you look at. At first I was surprised by the number, but then again, I was, I'm not really when I kind of think about it more. When I think about talent margin or talent discrepancy and just with what is on Clemson's roster, this totally makes sense, in every which way. They have the better players, they have the better offense, they have a better defense. Drake May is, the superior player in the game. He's the best player in all of the football game, but there's only so much that he's going to be able to do. Now, I'm not saying I'm taking Clemson -6.5. We'll see. I'll wait a minute to break that down. But I'm just saying, at first it surprised me, and I think it surprised a lot of people. But when you really think about it, it shouldn't. Clemson really has the capability to beat anybody. It's just they've had some, I don't know, they've had some tiffs. They've had something going on in the locker room where it just prevented them to do so. So before I dive into it, man, let me know what you think about this line. Let me hear it.
I'm kind of torn here. So the problem is I feel like the books are begging us to grab North Carolina +6.5. And I feel like the smart play is to take Clemson -6.5. But I think I'm going to rock with Carolina here. Only because I don't think they're going to win. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I think I could see this being a back and forth matchup to where it could come down to a game-winning field goal, 4-point game. And I think I just need to take the points if I think that's how the game is going to go. So I think I'm going to rock with North Carolina. Again, like you said, they've kind of both been underwhelming. North Carolina's 8-2, so it's a great record. But Clemson riding that high after beating Notre Dame. I know they beat Georgia Tech by 3 touchdowns. Still wasn't too impressed with that game. So I think I'm going to take the points.
That's interesting. Quite interesting. Now,
Yep.
I will say this line, there's some books that open up lines really early, and this line seemingly opened up around 11.5 on some books, and it was driven all the way down. So looking at some of the splits, 43% of the tickets are on North Carolina, but 77% of the money is on North Carolina. So again, could be an indication that there's some sharp money coming in on UNC. The public is actually on Clemson. Like the amount of people favorite Clemson, but the amount of money favorites UNC. So that's something to note if you're into that kind of stuff. Here's what gets me. The projections have North Carolina winning outright.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of another reason that it shocked me. But I want to take Clemson so bad. I think they just have the better roster. But let's look at some of the numbers first.
Okay.
North Carolina, 12th overall in FBS and offensive success rate. Clemson, 32nd. North Carolina on defensive side of the ball, 68th overall in offensive success rate allowed. Clemson, 5th. So Clemson gets the nod on defense. North Carolina gets the nod on offense. Now, if we drill down into that a little bit deeper, North Carolina, surprisingly, they run the ball really well. But you flip it over, Clemson, they do a good job of stopping the run. And one thing that North Carolina is going to have to do is that they're going to have to create some explosive plays in the passing game and in the rushing game, more so than they have done in the past. If we look at some of their explosive play rates, North Carolina 65th in FBS in passing explosive play rate, 93rd in rushing explosive play rate. You flip it over, Clemson, 22nd in stopping and limiting passive explosive plays, 111th in limiting Clemson explosive plays. So that's the key. That was my key stat that I wanted to talk about. You can run the ball on this Clemson team, given that you create explosive plays. You need players to be able to generate that outcome. And I think that North Carolina has the players to do that, especially with them preventing Drake May doing what Drake May does. I think they lean on the ground game, and then they create some explosive plays here and there. And I think Clemson ends up keeping it close within, or I think UNC keeps it close within Clemson. I think they lose by a field goal. I don't think they lose by more than a touchdown, but I want to take Clemson so bad. They should easily beat this UNC team. We saw what they did last year in the SEC championship, but
go for it. No one's stopping you.
I am. I'm sorry myself.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
So UNC for me, I don't think they win, but I think they cover.
Okay. So, see, yeah, that's kind of where I was sitting at.
Yeah. All right. This isn't even a big game breakdown, so I don't want to say big game by any means, but Texas goes to Iowa State. Iowa State's 7.5-point home underdog. Quinn Ewers expected to come back. Also, Quinn Ewers expected to return to Texas the next year.
I saw that.
So that bodes an interesting conversation that, maybe one we can have in the near future.
He's not going to Tennessee.
What's Arch Manning going to do?
I knew where you were going to go.
What is Arch Manning going to do?
Yeah, he's going to transfer.
He has to, right?
Yeah, he has to.
Man,
I know.
He's gonna run up a tab, that's for sure. All right, hey, as I digress, Quinn Ewers expected to be back for this game. Big 12 matchup. The last time that these two teams will play for potentially a really, really long time due to the Longhorns leaving and going towards the SEC. Now, point total sitting at 47.5. Again, Iowa State plus 7.5-point home underdogs. I'm gonna tell you right now, I took Texas 7.5 where I could get them. I actually bought them at 7, especially once the news that Quinn Ewers came out and broke. The projections like Texas to win by 10. So I'm picking Texas to win outright. I'm also picking Texas to cover the spread. Before I get into some of the numbers, Seth, let me know what you think as well.
I'm glad we finally disagree because I'm rocking with Iowa State here.
Did that, baby. We
Yes,
needed it.
Texas just can't finish games. You know, the last 3 weeks they'll get a big lead, but they just seem to collapse towards the end. I think Iowa State can keep it close. You know, I didn't even realize Iowa State was 5-2 in the Big 12. I mean, like that's a sneaky good record. I haven't really watched a lot of Iowa State this year, but I have watched Texas, and I haven't been impressed with what they've been doing in the second half of their games. Give me Iowa State and the touchdown.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Yep.
Hey, we got a first beer bet on the board. If you don't know what a beer bet is, check out our Twitter account. That's where we post our picks in which we disagree with each other. It's all in good fun. Now, I agree with you in the fact that Texas they have not closed in games. They always kind of like let people fiddle around. But, with Quinn Ewers coming back and the Texans, they have to start ramping up their play to get a nod into the college football playoff. And I just, I think they do that. I think they pad their stats, they build their resume, and they're ready to get the ball rolling and build that momentum going in towards the college football playoff. Now, on the flip side, if I want to play devil's advocate against myself, one thing that I've noticed is I feel like all of these Big 12 teams are extra motivated whenever they play Texas or OU for that matter, just because of the fact that they're leaving the SEC or leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC. It's kind of like this bitter motivation factor.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody wants revenge and they're playing for a little bit extra. So I've noticed that, and it's been quite interesting. So if that's something that, changes your mind a little bit, I certainly would understand if you told me that's why you're taking Iowa State. So, but for me, Texas is the move. I got it at 7. So if you can get points, you can find the line somewhere at 7. I would do so, but it might be tough. Looking at the numbers, 27% of the tickets are on Texas. So the public actually favors Iowa State here. But 77% of the handle is on Texas. So, I'm kind of surprised at that one. Kind of a mirror image of what Clemson and North Carolina splits were. But, don't let it lead you astray. There's nothing funky going on in there. Texas, their offense have struggled as of late, but it's still a solid unit. I mean, they're 46 overall and overall offensive success rate. And that's baking in numbers with Quinn Ewers being out.
Right.
So that's why you see those skewed a little bit. Passing success rate, 27th overall in FBS. So really impressive that they've maintained those kind of numbers. Iowa State, 124th in FBS and overall offensive success rate.
That's okay.
I will say they do somehow generate explosive plays, both in the rushing game and the passing game. And I think that's what keeps them afloat is they have playmakers. And, you can look up the definition of an explosive play. It's, rushing plays that gain more than 12 yards and passing plays that gain more than 20, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's
and another factor, Iowa State, I'm looking, they're still playing for a conference championship. They're 5-2. They're sitting tied at second. They have the head-to-head to Oklahoma State. They beat them earlier this year. You take down Texas, and you have the head-to-head over Texas now too. I didn't even think about that. So that's a little extra motivation right there if that gets you thinking a little bit.
Oh, that's a good point. But I think Texas is too.
That's fair.
Yeah. Defenses on the ball, these teams are actually very similar. Texas 19th overall in offensive success rate allowed. They're really good at limiting plays in the rushing game, 10th overall in success rate allowed on the ground, 6th overall in limiting explosive play rates on the ground. Both of them allow explosive plays in the passing game now, so Iowa State can potentially get them there. So it should be a fun one nonetheless. I'm taking Texas by 10 in this potential final matchup between these two teams. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
I like it.
All right, hey, that wraps it up for the big game breakdown. You got any final picks you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I got an unbiased game. Memphis takes on SMU this weekend. I am rocking with Memphis plus 8.5 and money line.
Okay.
Take it to the bank.
Yeah, completely unbiased.
It is going to be a good game, though.
Yeah. As all Memphis games usually have been.
I do. I wanted to hear your feedback. That's kind of why I brought it up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like Memphis has been all over the place. So, but they play teams close, no matter who they're playing. They play
Missouri.
Close.
We only lost to Missouri by a touchdown earlier this year.
I do have one that I want to throw out there that's kind of an early model projection type pick. South Carolina +2. I actually got them at +3 while I could. So if you can get them at +3, I'm going to say take South Carolina +3 at home at night against the Kentucky Wildcats.
Ooh.
Yeah, the South Carolina, both of these teams actually sucked. So, quite frankly, but I think that with it being at home for South Carolina, at night, the chaos will ensue. I think Shane Beamer is still going to be able to get this team up and motivated and ready to go. So I like South Carolina to win outright at home against the Cats. So that I don't have any other, model predictions. Nothing really stuck out, but I will have a few more later. Again, you can find everything at Statlytics_ on X. Make sure to follow us there. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. We will be back here next week for the final week, rivalry week. Got a lot of fun games we're going to talk about there.
Yes,
Talk to you guys later.